unspoken plans still shape lives. What happens when the plans passed down were never finished? Some legacies don't just fail, they fracture. This is My Little Giant. Little stories, giant family impact. Let's examine the cost of inherited expectations and missed mentorship.
October 1991, Bay Bridge, California. The deal was sealed in skyline views. John Whitmore stood at the top of the Bay Bridge Tower, pen in hand, heart in flames. A signature later, the last of James Whitmore's discipline was traded for dreams draped in debt. A framed photo of James, crooked, slightly dusty, hung in John's office, a silent judgment. The glass was dirty, but the look in James's eyes cut clean. A withered tree limb snaps off. A large branch falls on the sidewalk, echoing John's soon to fail fortunes. The wind howls briefly, then stills, just long enough to draw attention to the quiet warning of nature itself. A church bell tolls in the distance, muffled and slow. It is noon, but it sounds like morning. Every thaw begins with a choice, every collapse with a crack that was ignored. Papers fluttered off John's desk as a breeze enters through an open balcony door. One catches the corner of a framed Whitmore Thanleaf motto: measure twice, honor always. March 1986, Bay Bridge, California. John inherited a fortune, not just in dollars, but in trust, in community, in wisdom. But he didn't see seeds. He saw shortcuts, expansion, applause. He believed growth without grounding was strength. 1986. John in boardrooms, all charm and ambition. Nodding at investors while ignoring conservative projections. He grinned at sharks that rose like rockets and ignored the fine print dragging like ballast. 1987. Dismissing Elijah Brooks' financial counsel at a church fundraiser. John says, Elijah, this isn't the 70s. We're scaling, not saving. His tone was light, but his dismissal heavy. Wisdom doesn't always wear a suit. 1988. Ignoring a letter from James that begins, steady hands build strong futures, then crumpling it and tossing it into a drawer. The drawer closed, and with it, decades of earned advice. 1989. Staring out over Bay Bridge, speech in hand, rehearsing lines about innovation and progress, he spoke to glass and skyline, hoping they'd clap back. 1990. Toasting with champagne as new Movos roll out, employees clapping half-heartedly. Bubbles rose in the glass, so did the debt. 1991. Slideshow projection on a corporate screen. New territories. High-rise developments. Grass pointing skyward. He believed the arrows would never point down. He stopped seeking wisdom the moment applause got louder than legacy. 1992. Overdrawing the company account while smiling through a product launch. The overdraft was drowned by the sound of forced celebration. 1993. Tossing aside an overdue tax notice with a scoff. John says, we're too big to fail. He believed his ambition was immune. 1994. John signing off on a flashy rebranding campaign. But this resulted in rolling layoffs at the original Ashland factory. The ink on the rebrand had barely dried when the first layoff notices went out. 1995. Factory floors fell silent. Machines that once hummed with legacy were unplugged. Workers carried their final paychecks past the building that had once meant security. A newspaper headline, Whitmore Holdings expands coast to coast. But at the same time, workers are removing the Whitmore sign from the Ashland plant. A child in Ashland asks his mother, does the Whitmore factory make toys? The mother shakes her head slowly and replies, It provided dignity. He was raised in legacy but allowed the weeds of resentment to take over. He neglected to see his inheritance as a gift. It was merely a mirror he refused to look into. To the world, he appeared dreading, but beneath the surface, he was running from silence, from shadows, from a father's unrelenting gaze. May 2015, Bay Bridge, California. Daniel flips through dusty folders in the Bay Bridge study, financial reports, negative cash flows, a trust deed canceled and stamped. Stacks of correspondence labeled urgent remain unopened. Old invoices, some yellowed, some stamped final notice, lay in a collapsed leather briefcase on the floor. The air is heavy with a stillness that feels thick with judgment. The journal spoke of seed funds. These folders whispered of squandered soil. The math told a story no ear wants to read. Daniel says softly, he didn't lose it. He walked away from it. John stood beneath a chandelier at a high-rise gala, his glass raised high, the crowd clapping politely. The evening shimmered with luxury, but the profits he celebrated weren't his to claim. They had been bought with the sacrifices of others no one in that ballroom spoke of. Not far from the scene, a factory gate closed shut. A foreman, one of the first employees John's father ever hired, walked away slowly, his lunchbox in one hand and tears barely hidden in his eyes. Where John framed as efficiency, others felt his abandonment. What he called strategy, they lived as betrayal. And in a quiet room, James's journal lay open beside a foreclosure notice. His handwriting was steady, his warning clear. But John had stopped reading long ago, because principles, when ignored, don't disappear. They return, and they leave a mark. Emily stood at the doorway, holding young Grayson tightly in her arms. Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of exhaustion. She told Daniel they didn't need help, but her words were less about pride and more about pain. Daniel didn't respond. He just let the phone ring. And in that silence, something unspoken settled between them. Because even if silence becomes inheritance, when pain is unaddressed. John's voice echoed from memory, a whisper from years before, filled with conviction. This deal changes everything, he had said, but time would prove otherwise. A bank teller, emotionless, brought down a heavy stamp. The word void appeared across the Whitmore Trust ledger like a final judgment. In John's office, a mission statement still hummed, its centerpiece, legacy. But behind the polished frame, the wall had cracked, silently splitting behind its promise. And on an old voicemail, attendant's voice shook through static. "Mr. Whitmore, I just need a few more days, please." But there was no reply, because the cost of mismanagement isn't always written in red ink. It lingers in sleepless nights, strained voices, broken trust. It lingers in people left behind. In one bold move, John had borrowed against the Whitmore estate to fund a tech park. Shiny, visionary, and entirely imaginary. A promise on paper, a crayer in practice. Daniel sits back in the chair. Dust hang in a light like suspended consequences. The tickling of an antique wall clock becomes deafening. Inheritance is not immunity. Without roots, even giants fall. Daniel sits in silence, surrounded by papers. In his lap, a torn envelope addressed to James. "I tried, Dad. I really tried." He faded, but pressed with desperate penmanship. The creased lines tell of folding and unfolding perhaps a dozen times. He'd blamed the world, the markets, the pressure, but buried beneath the ledger sheets was the truth. He knew, he chose, he failed. Daniel finds a second unopened envelope. It's aged, sealed carefully with faint fingerprints. scrolled in John's distinctive hand to Daniel. He doesn't open it. A vibration, his phone buzzes. A text from Emily. You okay? He pockets the letter, looks around the room. Old blueprints on the shelf, a broken photo frame of his parents, one cracked window letting in a shaft of light, a childhood photo of himself and John fishing, tucked beneath a dusty lamp. The lad flickers once, then dims. He exhales. Not yet, he mutters. Some letters hold more than words. They hold the weight of all that was never said. Daniel places both letters beside the journal. The journal now rests open in a page marked with James's phrase. The weight of a name is measured in what it carries, not just what it claims. Legacy isn't just inherited, it's interpreted. It's not what you hold, it's what you heal. He stares at his reflection in the dark window. Jan's jaw, James's eyes. A quiet rumble of thunder rolls through Bedridge. A flicker of lightning silhouettes Daniel against the bookshelf. He whispers, I won't be the withered branch. A leaf blows in through the cracked window. He catches it in his hand. He closes his eyes. A faint whistle echoes from memory. James's tune, slow, steady, rising at the end. The branch may wither, but the seed remembers. What are you doing with what was left in your hands? Mismanaged wealth isn't just about money. It's about missed moments, fractured trust, and what we fail to pass on. I've seen it in my own life. You don't have to repeat what broke you. You don't have to carry someone else's silence. If this stirred something in you, download the reflection guide below. 3 warning signs you're mismanaging more than money. Whether your legacy is clear or chaotic, this guide can help you take the first step. You might not have a journal in the attic, but you do have a choice, and that choice can change everything. Daniel touches the sealed letter again. A knock echoes faintly from downstairs. He looks toward the staircase. Footsteps, then silence. His mother's voice, strained and trembling. I wasn't protecting you. I was hiding from my own pain and regret.
Legacy isn't just what's handed down, it's what's left undone. This is My Little Giant. Little stories, giant family impact. Let's move forward.